The Empirical Energy Podcast blows open the silent revolution, rewriting the rules of global energy markets. Measured, verified energy is no longer an alternative. It's becoming the gold standard. We dive deep with the producers, traders, consultants, and renegades driving this seismic shift. Step inside the raw mechanics of how verification and blockchain-fueled trading are dismantling the old systems and creating a future where alternative energy doesn't just compete, it takes over. This is the movement of reshaping energy as we know it, bold, unstoppable, and just getting started. Here is your host, Mark Smith.
Hey everybody, this is Mark Smith, the host of Empirical Energy Podcast, and I'm here with Carlos from ETAJOULE, and I'm really excited to hear about this, an alternative way to really power data centers. And so anyway, welcome, Carlos.
Thank you, Mark. Pleasure to be here.
So tell me about ETAJOULE. What do you guys do? What problem do you solve? And then how did you sort of have the aha moment about how to power data centers?
Sure. So ETAJOULE is an engineering company. We're based in Jacksonville, and we've always looked at energy efficiency, and we pay our bills with optimizing large-scale refrigerations and boilers and processes using artificial intelligence with a tool called Sorba, and we develop the specific applications for them. And then as a spin-off, we're trying to build microgrids in Puerto Rico, so renewable microgrids. In Puerto Rico, established a prosumer concept with a company called EOC.Energy, and with a group of veterans from Shreveport and Texas. They wanted to bring development to Shreveport, Louisiana, specifically to Olive Street, where they grew up, and they were looking for, they could secure land, and they were looking for what to do and what projects could happen, and they're coming from the information security space. In DoD, so they're data center experts. So through the Minority Business Association in Florida, we got connected. The connection was Kevin. Yeah, so Kevin is the treasurer of the national organization, and he's part of that team, and he connected us. We initially looked at putting solar and agrivoltaics in these fields, trying to create not only energy, but also jobs in the communities in the Southeast United States. But we realized that it's very difficult to locate a solar output, to get PPAs into the grid. So we say, well, you guys want to do the data centers guzzle energy, so why not couple that? And that's how we started developing solar modular data centers.
Yeah, because when you think about data centers, you think about the big ones. Like I've seen videos on creating Colossus 2, Elon's data center that would have like 100,000 NVIDIA GPUs, and he had to buy a gas processing plant in Memphis, process 18 million gallons of, water a day, and on and on and on. So those kind of scale are really unusual and really, really expensive. I mean, I'm looking at OpenAI, and all these guys going to spend billions and billions on infrastructure. So your solution is completely different, right? You're having distributed data centers powered by solar and waste, like biowaste, chicken poop, basically. And which is interesting because, we also in the RNG business in terms of measuring and things like that. And a lot of times that people want to turn it into renewable natural gas, but it's orphaned, right? There's no pipeline directly. They didn't build a pipeline to go to a, poultry waste place. So, how does your thing look, and how do you combine those two, to make that work?
Sure. So, I got some pictures here to
let's see. Yeah, let's see the pictures.
Your imagination.
Yeah.
Let me just share my screen 1 second here.
Yeah, because I think this, because when you think about solar by itself, it works during the day or when it's sunny, but then you got the issue of battery storage. And then when you think of RNG, right, or renewable natural gas coming from poultry waste, again, you have the issue of orphaned gas or getting that gas up to the spec of natural gas, right? So it could just be stuck in a pipeline. So tell me about what I'm seeing here.
Methane is important. Methane is a naturally occurring gas in organic waste, which is 20 times more potent than CO2 and remains in the atmosphere for much longer. Okay, so there's many ways to monetize a waste stream through the avoidance of methane, and you got credits, and you got ways in which to make projects pencil with tipping fees and incentives, which exist and vary from state to state. Okay, but that adds a layer of complexity, which then makes the waste of agricultural projects expensive. So one way to do that is, well, I mean, close the circle, right? So connect food, fertile soil, the manufacturing of intelligence, which is a brand new industry, and the fact that that guzzles an enormous amount of energy. Okay, so if you put them together, I mean, you can have naturally harvest the sun, use the fields to produce, to have cattle or other agricultural products under it, have a broiler farm. I mean, a large broiler farm, 500,000 birds, for example, can produce somewhere in the 50 tons of manure a day. That will give us about 10 megawatt hours a day. And that is a significant portion of the energy that a modular data center, a 4 megawatt node, an olive node, we call them olive 1, olive 2, right? And an olive node would use within a single day. So between the solar and the chicken poop, you can generate a solution where you have batteries for fast deployment, you have a combined cycle with a biodigester, and for long duration energy storage, okay? And then you have your solar as the other power source. So no longer the grid becomes, the limitations of the grid's edge becomes the challenge, okay? So, and what's really interesting is a 1 gigawatt project, solar, requires glazing over 20,000 acres of land. But a small project like this, you can do 1,000 of them, produce 10 times the output in gigantic capacity, and you wouldn't even know they're there. So it's a much more sustainable way because it's just a different scale of thinking of how to solve somewhat the same problem. There's going to be computational tasks that require the large machines. Fine. But that's not all that is. I mean, most of the demand is going to be for solving relatively small, simple tasks at the edge around the large urban centers where people will want to use this convergent inference engines to facilitate their work. And that's where the huge growth is happening.
Right. And so being an AI business, yeah, we train, let's say we train our models, infrequently because they are quite intensive. And let's say we use maybe an AWS cloud or Google Cloud, whatever. But yeah, the inference engine, all of our stuff runs on the edge, on these NVIDIA AGXs out there, in the field, on upstream sites or wherever. So yeah, I understand that. Same thing with even think about the cars, right? So those autonomous vehicles and whatever, they all have chips in them for the inference engine, but that's not where you train the model. That's where it runs on the edge. Yeah, there's going to be 100,000, maybe 100,000 times as much inference as there is in, model training. So you had another diagram too that kind of walks through this process.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's just a line schematic of the plant. And what's nice about this diagram is you can see sort of the circular thinking happening. So the loops closing where you have your poultry and you got your waste coming to your membrane biodigesters, and then you have your refining plants, and then a combined cycle. And then, you have our empirical energy management node here that allows you to actually monetize the carbon credits and everything else that comes with it. I mean, there's a few revenue streams here: the fertilizer, the data, the credits that you can measure and get, the energy, which is going to be used by the data center, but can also be exported into the grid or be used in the adjacent facility.
100%. So, yeah. Yeah. And, when I talk to energy traders who trade both ENG, empirical natural gas, and ERNG and solar, whatever, yeah, the requirements for that data are increasing. And the good news is there's a lot of these empirical certifications like ISCC that can handle both of those, like ISCC plus ISCC CFC. You can do feedstock blending, all that kind of stuff. Very good. So
I love this node here as well, where we didn't leave the heat out either. So you can actually use the heat to support the farm itself, whether it's in greenhouses or just heating the broiler beds, the broiler houses, for example.
Now, is there any, and we always talked a bunch about Chickapoo. What about on the solar side? I know you mentioned that you got like an MIT award or like competition or something. So is there any innovation on the solar side that you guys are doing as well?
Well, I mean, what you referenced, when ETAJOULE was born, it was born out of the American-made solar prize. And that is DOE's attempt. There's this thing called HeroX, and is their attempt to build the Silicon Valley of energy into the future. So we won round 4 of the competition with a team out of MIT, Dr. Elise Strombach and Dr. Kyle Wilke and Aaron, and these are all a bunch of smart boys. And what they're doing is they're creating a transparent aerogel. And this is a heat problem. So it has nothing to do with data centers, but this is just an aside here, sorry. But the 40% of our matrix is heat. And that is harnessed today through economic natural gas. Okay, but that's a non-renewable resource. Of course, it's a lot less harmful than, say, burning bunker fuel, right? We need to do something about process heat. 60% of that process heat in the United States is less than 200 degrees C, which with technology that we are developing on that side, which is to add an aerogel, a transparent aerogel, more clear than glass and more insulating than air behind the glazing of a flat plate collector. And if you can do that, you can then build a very robust process heat technology that on a platform that's more than 40 years old, which allows you to tackle heat under 200 C, which is 60% of it. Okay, so everybody likes the cement, high heat, complicated, but actually most of it is just there at arm's reach. And so that's what we won the American Solar Prize. We brought the concept of that collector. But the world is not ready to deal with process heat, unfortunately. I mean, people have, there's all sorts of ideas of how to do it. The big boom and the big energy demand is in electrification, and more specifically, the now data. So the manufacturing of intelligence. I mean, and that's the absolute race. Just to put a little bit in perspective, at our current efficiency rate of producing artificial thinking, okay, and we're far away from real thinking, but just for simple, just call it that, is 20,000 times less efficient than what your brain does. So if we are already consuming 5 Earths to support our current cerebral capacity as a species. Okay, now imagine if we amplify that consumption by 20,000 times. We would need 100,000 planets. We got to figure out a different way. We got to figure out a scale that works.
So speaking of scale, I think you mentioned in another call, like the big vision of how many of these distributed data centers were like 400 or something like that. And the big idea is they could be located in more rural areas because they don't have to be, they're sort of self-contained. So you don't need the grid. I mean, you need enough so you can.
It's more interesting than that. You can locate them in semi-rural areas near urban centers where you need them, because now you don't need 20,000 acres. Now you don't need to be near the natural gas infrastructure. So you can actually put them in land that is relatively economic near urban centers at a scale that makes sense for small towns, small cities, or multiple of them for big cities. Okay, so the land constraint, the grid edge problem just disappears by changing the scale.
Where are you guys at in terms of your project and things like that? I mean, you've put this team together. Yeah.
Yeah. So we are in conversations for about 800, little bit more now, of 800 acres of land distributed across the Southeast United States. Now we got a group in California that is jumped on board. There is land in Virginia, and we are working with design our modular solar solution, and we are in conversations to have our modular data center solution pinned down but we need that end client. So it's difficult to do on the vacuum. We need that end client to say, yeah, I want to buy into this concept and make this happen. We have lined up financing once we got those initial LOIs of those end clients, and we are in the interconnection permitting process for our first project in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Very good. It's a fascinating way to solve this problem, right? Because we now planet have an insatiable appetite for, I guess, intelligence, through AI and stuff like that. So it's only going to keep growing. And I mean, I guess this is a lot easier than building a data center on the moon, which we're talking about data center in space. There's only a few companies that can be able to do that. Elon's probably one of them. But yeah, first you got to get a rocket ship up there. Very interesting. So for people who want to learn more about this and stuff, where do they go to learn more about this and get a hold of you?
Sure. So, Brett, I'm available in LinkedIn. They can ping me there. I'm relatively responsive. You can go into our Olive Power website. So www.olivepower.energy. And in there, if you go into secure your LOI, you're going to see a nice video. It's going to show you. It's going to give you a process. You'll be able to sign an NDA and start conversations with us. And, specifically, we want to hear about the large corporate clients that need data right now, that need data services. That's the people that we're looking for. I mean, we understand that the Apples of the world and the Oracles of the world have their plans. We, of course, want to hear from them, but there's other players. Yeah. Players that are trying to grow, players that are trying to secure infrastructure. We have a pipeline that is upwards of 100 megawatts of processing, given the land and solar that we are organizing.
And for those that have been, in the RNG business, through Biowaste and using digesters and all that stuff, who have been really, really relying on the credits to do that, there's a little bit of concern that, hey, what happens if those credits go away? Is this something that could pencil out economically, even if the credits went away? So is it an alternative pathway for some of those people that have been relying on, the carbon credits?
Yes. The answer is yes. So the value of so when we started our projects looking just at the energy space and the ITC blew up, we were worried, okay, is this going to have a long term? So, but when we incorporate the data component as a way of monetizing that energy, something magical happens. That actually happens with all renewable energy projects, which is energy is a subsidized business everywhere. Okay. I tell my teams, put on your big boy pants and don't sweep under the rug your externalities. Assume them into your business model, and then the energy solution pays for itself in days. So basically, once you were producing a service like a data service, then it pencils really attractively, no problem.
Excellent. Well, hey, Carlos, I appreciate you giving an update here. I could think of a few scenarios where this could be very, very interesting. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me here and for giving me a little bit of a soapbox to stand on and tell what we're doing. I really appreciate it, Mark.
All right.
The Empirical Energy Podcast requires more than a conversation. It takes action, research, and collective wisdom. If today's episode resonated with you, we'd love to hear your insights. Join the conversation and help us shape the future together. We'll be back with more stories, strategies, and real-world solutions that are making a difference for everyone. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, write a review, and share it with someone you think would benefit from it too. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.